Instagram. So glad to have you here. You're the first one to pop on. I'm sure we'll have more. Thomas, great to see you. How are you?
Good morning, guys. Good. How you doing?
Doing good. Put this to auto for now. There we go. Awesome. Eric, you want to kick us off and get this show on the road?
Sure. Are we live?
Yes, we are.
We are live and rocking and rolling. Awesome. Well, happy Friday, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so glad to see you here. This is a really big week for me personally. Jana just joined us. How you doing, Jana? Good to see you. I probably should say Jonah. I think I'm saying it wrong.
It's Yana, just to make it extra.
Yana, okay.
I know it's unusual, so no worries.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Thank you guys so much for joining us. For those of you who are here live and those who are tuning in, we got a lot of stuff happening, a lot of happy, good news. My parents are visiting me in Brazil right now because it's a triple birthday tomorrow for my wife and my twins. They were all born on April 26th. So in just a little bit, I'm going to skip out of this co-working office and got an Airbnb in the countryside here to spend some time at. So I'm looking forward to that for sure. On the business side, a lot of exciting things happening. Our lake house was listed and it's got a lot of people interested in it and a lot of movement and things happening there. And on the Scale with Pros mentorship we're doing, that's going very well as well with Cody Barton and his team. So we are learning a ton from them. We are growing, we are dissecting our business and changing it up and just putting a really solid structure to it that is super exciting. We just barely had an interview, so now we are starting to interview for another full-time position, which is wild because previously when I was just, like a year ago today, I was just doing private money loans all by myself, which I only realize now how crazy that was, right? How wild it was for me to think, oh, well, I can be the marketing, I can be the sales, I can be the negotiations, I can be the closing guy, I can get a TC to help me with paperwork and stuff, but then I can talk with title, I can make sure the docs look okay, I can do the follow-up, I can calculate the payoff and send the payoff letter. I was doing all of that a year ago. And then I was like, I really need a partner to help me who's better at the stuff that I'm not good at, which is like the paperwork side of things and a whole lot more like the systems and processes. I thrive more in the creative visionary space. So I need an integrator for systems and processes. So anyways, fast forward, got an amazing business partner with Justin Barber, who is the master integrator, who is building some raging systems and processes that help us do tons and tons, millions more deals efficiently and effectively. We hired a full-time executive assistant / underwriter, Mariel, and she has been incredible for us. Again, at that time point, we were like, well, man, can we really afford a full-time employee? Do we really need somebody for 40 hours a week? What if there's only 10 or 20 hours of work to do? But we took the leap of faith. It felt right, and it's just been incredible to have that. And now we're looking at hiring multiple more employees, starting with a salesman to just full-time be taking the leads we get from Facebook, from organic, from other sources, and working with them, talking with them, helping them understand our program, and getting more deals closed for a commission-based salesman. So we are expanding, and we are excited about it. We're excited to share our journey with you, and we're excited to hear your journey as well and see how we can help each other and see how we can synergize.
Question for you, Eric. Where you're sourcing or where you're finding your employees? I always find that interesting.
So that's a really interesting question because I had a really good friend and a former business partner. We still do some business together, Logan Bowers, who was asking me this morning, what credit and background check system do you use for your borrowers? And that question is near and dear to my heart, not because I really cared that much about a matrix that shows the pros and cons of different checkpoint and background, credit services. But the very first time we weren't even thinking that much about hiring somebody else. I was just thinking like, okay, Justin and I are going to do it by ourselves. Like I've got somebody to help me now. He's going to take some of the burden so Justin and I can do millions and we'll be good, right? That was kind of my mindset when we first partnered up. But it was in one of the Gator Zooms that I was teaching. I think it was like to lend or not to lend. It was one of those taught Zooms. And Mariel Ortiz came and asked a question, and she was like, well, how do we get more involved? Like what if we wanted to collaborate or do work with people like you? And I was like, well, like, I mean, not every operation would need to hire a new person, but sweat equity, if nothing else, like if you wanted to go work with some of the people that you're seeing, they're doing tons of deals, like offer to help them bring, like, find out what their lending box is and bring deals to them, or find out what systems and processes they need help with. And American to me, after she direct messaged me, she's like, well, what can I help you with? And I was like, dang, I was starting to see how like Justin and I couldn't, well, I mean, we could, but we'd just be limited if it was just ourselves and we didn't have another person helping with all the things to do in a private money lending business that has a lot of loans and a lot of money out. So we gave like a free trial to her to say like, hey, could you look at multiple credit and background systems, and could you bring a report back to us? Because that was like the trial. Like, we want to see like what kind of quality, attention to detail. And she knocked it out of the park. Like, we didn't have to hold her hand and explain every tiny little thing. She understood the concept very quickly. She gave us this beautiful PDF full of all these different options. She got back to us really quickly on that homework. She had multiple detailed conversations with all these services about what they could and what they couldn't do. And so like that one was just kind of like pure luck that we found Mariel, because she reached out, she wanted to do stuff with us, and I'm like, okay, let's give it a try. And then we hired her full time, and we're super grateful that she's been with us. So that one was pure luck. When we thought about hiring more people for our business, it was kind of a daunting thought, because ever since I started getting Facebook ads that were booking time and like blocking up my calendar and stuff, I mean, I love talking on the phone with sales calls. I just there was something in me that was bugging me so bad about it, because there's so many to-dos on the business side for growing the business itself, not just the minor to-do of like one extra borrower needs the deal explained, that I was like, I barely have time for all the things I need to do. And I've got some big multi-million-dollar decisions on the business. So why am I on a sales call right now that's like explaining no monthly fees and blah, blah, blah. Like, it's like, we got to have a salesman who can just relax and do nothing but sales, which is something that I would probably like to do as well. I would like to have that life. It's not a bad thing. If there's like no other burden or stress or responsibility, I just spend most of my day talking with people, getting to meet new people, telling about our product, and like no other business stress or responsibility. That would be a really fun thing. But the problem is, I knew we wanted that salesman, but where do we find them, right? Like, I have never hired or fired a salesman in my life before. Justin has actually hired a lot of people from his previous nursing career, but he's never hired or fired a salesman. He doesn't know how to do that, how to look for that.
Right.
So if you look who, not how, that was a huge principle for us. So we are working with the Scale with Pros team, and the guy's name is Alex, who is an HR boss. Like, he's been in HR for 20 years. He's done so many, I think he's said like in the thousands of interviews that he's done. Like, and he already had like he already has the connections. He already had somebody who was a salesman that like we just interviewed that was a really, really good fit for exactly what we wanted or needed. So, it seems like, it might be expensive to hire it out, or to like, pay for other mentors or affiliates or people to help you with it. But like, for every hour of Alex's time that he spends looking for an employee for us and sorting, filtering, using his network, it's like the same productivity as 20 hours of my time or 20 hours of Justin's time
Probably more.
trying to sell more. Like, he's just so efficient, and he's so well connected that like we literally could have hired that person in like 2 days, and it would be a good hire. We just need to find a few more candidates to see like, who would be the best option for us. So for HR, and then like for finance, for legal, for all these other things, like, you just need to find people who are absolute wizards.
I don't think you mentioned you said that it was the Scale with Pro teams, but I'm not sure if everybody knows what that is.
Yeah, I think I briefly mentioned Cody Barton earlier, but I'll say it again. Cody Barton has been fantastic to work with, and his whole team. So plug and a shout out to them if anybody wants to to invest in that for their business. If you're not ready to scale, like if you don't have your basic business idea and you're not ready to start hiring employees and figuring the systems out, then like 2023, Eric was probably not ready for Cody Barton and his team, but now, it's a different scenario. So I think that it's, if you're in that scenario, then it's hugely beneficial to get those kind of people. And it is, it's like $30K for this one. So it's not cheap necessarily, but the value we're getting is way far beyond that. And a lot of people, like, you can go to Dan Martell, Alex Hormozy, Ryan, I think Ryan Blair is his name. There's a lot of people who are multimillionaire, super successful, amazing people who will scale your business as well. But they're going to want an equity chunk, or it's going to be a different structure, or you're going to pay like a small amount and then get access to a bunch of pre-recorded trainings and tools and templates and calculators, but not them like in the trenches actually doing your finances, doing your legal, doing your HR. So that was the best fit after comparing a lot of programs. And so far, we're super grateful that we did that. That was a super long answer to all this, but I hope it gives some good context for all that. Was that helpful, Yana?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it, because I guess for me, I was curious if there even is a true opportunity to hire from outside the community, because it is somewhat niche, right? And I've hired a lot of individuals, in the software and service space over the years, and certainly agree with the approach to potentially outsource it with a recruiting firm. I know usually they want 6 months worth of salary as far as like that finder fee goes, but to your point, they already have a network. They already have done all the pre-screening and all the things that you wouldn't really have the time to do. So it's definitely worth it.
Well, and with their team, they're not charging us 6 months worth of that person's salary. No way.
You're getting a steal then, because that is the going rate in the market for any like recruiting company. So
yeah, they're
you're lucky.
Yeah, they'll do one-off packages too. Like I don't want to turn this whole office hours into just like selling their services, because it's them, not us. But they've been so incredible that I do have to give them the proper praise for all the good stuff that they've done for us and that they're continuing to do. So they have an efficient package where it's like all together. But if you don't want to do the whole big mentorship, you just want to have like a one-off hire. I could be wrong, but I think, Justin, it was like $3K or something per hire, somewhere around that.
Very affordable.
Yeah, it's super affordable, super reasonable.
Yeah.
I think you have to like maybe pay a small fee to be a part of their mentorship and get access to the live Zooms and the tools and stuff, but then just like super low amount per hire considering the value they bring. So I really recommend that instead of just trying to DIY a hire if you've never hired and fired in the real estate space before. Awesome. Well, thank you for that. What's up? We got Travis Craig who joined us. Thanks for joining, Travis. How you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, pleasure to be here. Nice to meet you guys.
Yep.
I'm
good to meet you
learning
too.
Here, not real fresh with Google Meet, but yeah, I'm in sub 2. Some of you guys in a top tier TC. Working out of Northern California and way up in Humboldt County near Oregon.
Okay.
Yeah, trying to get in here and just connect with a little bit of the lending community, and as part of my goal for coming in and meeting with y'all is in my corner here. I'm still fairly new to real estate in general. I mean, when I jumped into sub 2, it was all new world, no connections, no nothing, no family in it. So and this is a small place up here, so I'm kind of building my network, but also thinking I can really help bring some new strategies that can really work well in this community. So yeah, I've been finding up here I need a lot more lending partners and connections to be able to help some of the investors up here, as I'm finding building out the buyers list and meeting some investors / agents and brokers. That's what everybody's looking for. So I mean, I've been adjacent to lending and funding in my TC transactions, but I'm just trying to have more connections so it can help up here. And then, yeah, when stuff falls through, have people to turn to on the fly and be able to keep these transactions rolling.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks for hopping on. You are in Northern California, right by Oregon. Do you know Jeff McGrew in Sub 2? He lives right in that same spot.
Yep. We are about as close as one can be together in the middle of nowhere. He's over, he's a county over, but it's like hours through the hills and wilderness. But yeah, I like Jeff a lot.
Yeah, small world. We did a deal with Jeff McGrew and his partner James Labella out of Ohio.
Mhm.
You know, California's my brother lives in California, beautiful place to visit, but due to the private money lending restrictions and laws in California, we don't do deals there. But in the states that we do, which are all like eastern states, and there's a lot of California investors who invest in those eastern states, we let deals happen for them.
Right on. Okay.
Yeah, I think
highlighting some of the challenge there.
Good
Limitations to opportunities here on the funding side. So I'd be curious. I don't know what some of those restrictions are, but or if you know anybody who is trying to work around those.
Well, there's a lot of people that are just giving up on California, including us, unfortunately, because like no matter how fancy you try to dress it up, like there's like stuff like the one touch rule. Like if I foreclose on somebody, and I email them, I message them, I make the formal request to pay once, I can't bother them again. Like, I mean, like it's just horror stories and like real horror stories where like you have pretty much no security. Like if a tenant moves into the house and they claim it's theirs, you can't kick them out, or like the usury rate is super low, the foreclosure timeline is forever. There's just an enormous amount of complexity, and the state will lean on the side of the borrower instead of the lender very, very heavily. Like there's a whole spectrum of it where like some states are super, super lender friendly. Some states are super, super borrower friendly. There's some that are kind of in the middle of that spectrum, but California and New York are the two poster children for borrower friendly, and lenders, you're screwed. You don't get your principal back, or you got to wait years and years for it. Like California and New York are the states where like people are at the foreclosure courts, and there's like a letter number, blah, 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 for the foreclosure file, dash 2 numbers. Those ending 2 numbers are the year that the loan was called due for foreclosure. And they've got numbers coming out there like 08. So since 2008, some poor lender has had their money stuck in a property. They've been trying to recover it, and the state still hasn't given them the deed to that property or the right to foreclose, the ability to. They're still trying to get their money back since 2008.
Yep.
So as private money lenders, we're like, yeah, I've had enough times where like, even in the most plain vanilla states and with good borrowers, I've unfortunately had to foreclose on people. So I just don't want to touch that in California.
We know one lender who's bold enough to lend in New York, and he knows all the ins and outs of exactly how the lending laws work. And he's very familiar with the fact that his loans might get stuck for a decade or more.
Yep.
But he's got his processes, and we say more power to him, and we'll send anybody that wants a loan in New York to him.
Yeah. And let me just say too, that it's a totally different mindset if you're a massive lender doing much more secure loans than if you're a small lender doing riskier loans, right? If you're a massive lender that's got $100 million or $200, $300 million worth of loans out, and you're super, super picky on credit score, tax returns, income, all that kind of stuff, your foreclosure rate should be like way less than 1%. It should be like 1 or 2 out of 1,000 that foreclose.
Mm-hmm.
So the default rate is so low that even though their default's going to suck and they might just have to lose that money in California and New York, they're like, well, whatever. You know, we made so much money, we have such a good book of business, or we lost some, counted as a loss, that's fine, right? It's just another ledger line, and they're still super profitable. For us, like, and literally when I started, this is my money straight out of my savings account. Like if I do a loan in California, that's my money from my savings account that's stuck for 10 years now, not like some ledger on a massive bank sheet, you know? So it's a whole different thing. And as private money, we're taking huge risks. Even though there's people in sub 2, Gator method, all of our communities are doing loans that are just off the hook risky, way riskier than we would even touch. But ours are still riskier than a bank loan because we're not saying I need a 20% down payment, because we're not saying I need monthly payments, because we're not taking like multiple years of tax returns and going through them with a fine tooth comb, you know? So even though we can say, oh, this is a good borrower, they've got a good history, the property makes sense, underwriting makes sense. Even with all of that looking bright, shiny, golden, our loans are still much riskier just inherently than a bank loan is going to be. So that's why you can get a bank loan to do stuff in New York or California, but it's really, really hard, and for good reason, to get any sort of true private money directly out of someone's savings account for California or New York. So that was a long-winded answer, but does that kind of make sense, Travis?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, certainly aware of some of the larger consumer, not just leaning, but heavily consumer type policies here. But yeah, I appreciate hearing some of the stuff from the private side in particular, because that's certainly some of the piece that's missing. I mean, I've talked with DSCR lenders and those larger options, but yeah, finding the private lenders to get into some of these more creative scenarios is apparently where the hard work needs to be done for me. So yeah, I mean, we've got one midterm rental out here where I'm still part-time W-2 for the hospital. And it's a big traveler need community up here. So I've got one midterm that kind of helps me stay pretty dialed on my tenants. Yeah, it's a big issue. I'm familiar with all the horror stories and such.
Yep, I totally get it. I mean, the things I say about a partnership are the things I would say about a private money loan in California or New York. So the things I say about a partnership, like if you're going, and way too many people in our investment communities just hop on like, oh, let's partner. Sure. Yeah, let's do it. It's going to be great. They hop on before really getting like vetting or getting to know their partners way, way, way too quickly. Like you shouldn't do a partnership with somebody with equity in an LLC, like shared bank accounts, all that, unless you would trust them with pretty much anything. You trust them with the keys to your car. You trust them with the keys to your front door. You trust them with your credit card. So like with Justin, you know, like I would trust him with my wallet, with my keys, with whatever. Because I've gotten to know him, because I vetted him, because we have that working relationship. Mm-hmm. So I would only, I mean, I just don't do loans in California, but if I was somehow forced to, and I just had to do it, I would only do a private money loan to somebody in those kind of states if I had that same level of trust, which is really, really hard to do when somebody just walks up and says, hey, I've got a sub 2 in California. I need a second position loan for $40K for the entry fee. Do you want to do that? Right? Because if you don't have that same level of trust, that's essentially what you are doing in California. You're giving them $40K of your hard-earned money, just like giving them the keys to your car or your house or your credit card or whatever, and you're just kind of trusting them with that because you can't depend on the state to get you that money back. You have to depend on the borrower with that $40K to be honest and pay that money back. Because if the borrower doesn't, then you're just done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Pace puts it this way. He's like, if, when you're lending money, and he's usually talking about within his community with second positions and things like that, you got to be willing to kiss it goodbye. Like the moment it leaves your bank account, you're probably not going to see it back, is the philosophy that he has. And obviously you want to find ways to mitigate that. We don't lend that way. We're going to see our money come back. We're going to get it back because of the way that we lend. But yes, when you lend certain ways, that's the only way that you can lend, is to have that attitude. And if you can't afford to lose it, then you don't want to be lending that style.
Yep. Very, very, very good points. Thank you, Justin. Do you have any follow-up questions or thoughts on that, Travis? I don't want to beat the dead horse, but like this is a topic that we get fired up about. At least I do.
No, not at the moment. I mean, I'm trying to position myself with NTC. I'm actually going to be working with Gary Sheffitz over here and trying to really be on the more conservative and legal public side of things. Just kind of seeing, some of the writing on the wall with stuff that's going on in this community and the very likely chance that things are going to be more heavily regulated. I mean, especially in our state, but across the board, and trying to position with the realtors and be ready to try and bridge that gap. So, and hopefully build better relationships with the commercial and the more conservative players in the game. So, yeah, I mean, I've done top tier, but Gary's been doing this stuff as an agent for a while. So I'm going to be working with him and trying to learn how I can really do this stuff as legitimately and open as possible. I mean, I've done enough of these to see some of the stuff that goes wrong, and yeah, ready to try and find ways to make these solutions that are solutions and not solutions that cause 3 more problems or ruin people's lives. So
Yep.
Yeah, hoping to be a part of that. And yeah, certainly that's helping the lenders out too, and seeing, that, yeah, utilizing the appropriate security instruments and all that as well. But yeah, trying to do it from the side where it makes the commercial side feel comfortable and willing to engage with us and not just burn all the bridges.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep, that's good. That's a noble cause. I mean, I think that's very, very needed, right? Like there's a lot of people in sub 2 that are getting into things where they need to have somebody who's kind of grounded and like, okay, let's make sure we structure this the right way, for sure. I see Brandon that hopped on. Thanks so much, Brandon, for joining us. How you doing?
Hey man, how's it going?
We're doing well. You're at your beautiful outdoor cabin, I can tell.
Hopefully soon. Yeah, no, I'm glad I can get on now. It's been a while. I left the government after 10 years, so doing this full time.
Part of the Quitters Club.
Yeah, full-time quitter. So yeah, it was bittersweet to leave a federal position to do this, but it's been nice to be home and not have to travel 5 hours a day up to DC. So that's been a huge load off of me, but it's going really, really well. So a lot more than I could expect. So it's been great. We're immersed in a lot of different things, mostly commercial, but it's been good. It's we'll have to figure out the other nuances of self-employment as we go.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about where you're what you're focused on right now. You say commercial. Are there certain states that you're focused on right now? Certain borrowers you're working with?
Yeah. We actually we're doing some stuff in DC right now, actually, with a big borrower. Well, he's been a borrower, he's been a lender, he's owned a couple banks himself. He's got access. He's done over 1,000 commercial deals himself. So we're working on that, just going through that process. So it looks like it's going to be pretty good. Low LTV, really low LTV, sub 65%. So we're going through that. So between DC, we have done a couple deals in New York. I heard the New York thing. It is a very tricky state, but when you figure out like the little things, there's a niche there, because people are still doing deals in New York. It's just the people who figure it out tend to be the ones that they get on top. And when you actually find people like Eric said that, or Justin said that, like that know the ins and outs of New York, like there's money to be made there. So we've done a couple in New York. Yeah, we won't touch California with a 10-foot pole at all. Michigan, we're doing some stuff in Michigan. And then the acquisition part, we were going into acquisitions, and that kind of got set back probably 2 months. We're starting to buy. We're kind of seeing how this market is playing out, because like here in Virginia, it's so inflated like what used to be you could buy a $250,000 house is now $600,000 or $700,000. And it's like, when is it just gonna, so we're not really doing much residential unless it's like mixed use with commercial. So but yeah, local stuff, Michigan, we are doing some stuff in New York, Connecticut.
So, but how much of this is lending versus like you guys actually buying properties?
Most of it is lending. Yeah,
Mhm.
most of it's lending. Most of it is partnering with the borrowers. Like we do all the underwriting, we put together the full package and stuff, and we bring in. We've actually made some major connections in the last probably 6 months that has allowed us to do this, where we basically have one or two top tier lending companies that are basically unlimited funds. So as long as everything meets their criteria, we send it to them. And so we realize that the same amount of work that you would put into the smaller residential deals, you can put the same amount of work into commercial stuff. And it's might take a little bit longer, but the payouts are better. And I like big projects myself. I just do. So I feel more of a sense of accomplishment, even though we're going to be doing some residential stuff ourselves. The commercial space is just, it's like it's the world's your oyster type of thing. So I love it. But yeah, we're rocking and rolling. It's been really good. I think Jump, probably not too long, will be probably leaving the government as well. So and then we'll both be full time in this. So, but yeah, it's great. Find your niche and then go at it. But commercial is definitely an awesome space to be in.
Cool. It's good to know. Are you willing to take loans in different areas, or are you predominantly working with specific vetted partners? The reason I ask is because it's always nice to know who your contacts are for the things you absolutely do not offer, and we don't touch commercial like that.
Yeah, I mean, we work with some designated people. Like we look at, we don't pass down, or if there's an opportunity, we can do quick glances and look at everything. Like if there's an opportunity, I mean, like we're looking at some stuff right now from some other borrowers that probably fit that criteria, some first position stuff, and then we'll pass it along to lenders, as long as everything makes sense and we can put everything together how they like it. It makes sense that like we're not shutting anything out. It just opens up more connections. But we don't want to get to a point where you're oversaturated and it's taking time away from everything else. And family is very important, just like you guys. Like we don't want to sacrifice too much of that. But yeah, we have our designated lenders and we have our designated borrowers. It's just it's putting all the puzzle pieces together, like most of us on here. There's always you got to put the full package together.
Yep, absolutely.
Cool.
Brandon, out of curiosity, how did you get into the commercial space? Because I mean, what you're sharing is certainly something that resonates with me, and I certainly agree with it. I just wouldn't even know how to pivot. So I don't know if you have any suggestions on that. Certainly would love your feedback.
Yeah. So we started off in the residential space, and it was what we found out. And I'm very blunt, so forgive me.
Love it. No,
yeah.
Go for it. You're my kind of people.
So we found out when you deal with people who need to borrow $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 or so, there is a way different tier of people that need $1 million, or they need, $750,000, or they need $5 million. Most of them already understand the lender's perspective. And so it kind of happened out of happenstance. Like we just had one presented to us and we're like, yeah, let's go for it. And it was a $55 million deal. And, we brought someone to that, but we put the whole package together, and then we realized, okay, we basically just put the same amount of work that we would into a residential. You know, other than, you know, if you're starting from the ground up, you know, you got to make sure you have your soil sample testing, and there's just a lot of other little things that you need to add on versus residential. But once you do that and you put it's just a few more steps. I shouldn't say a few more. There's probably 10 more steps in commercial. Really, there's probably 10 more steps. But once you have it all in sequence and everything's there, environmentals and all that stuff, where unless they already have all that stuff done and they can send that over immediately, that's even better. It's literally just a few more steps than residential, and the payouts are way bigger. And those borrowers usually already have 1 or 2 or 3 more projects already going, or in process. So we work with a guy out of Wisconsin that he's always got 10 projects going at once, and it's ground up. Big stuff, commercial warehousing, distribution centers. He does a lot for Amazon, you know, so Amazon distribution centers. He has his own funding company as well, but sometimes he needs a little extra. He's very good at using other people's money to maximize his own, and that's the key, where he understands, you know, what it takes. So yeah, I would, you know, I loved the residential part of it, but there's just a different tier of people that understand lenders. Like, there's got to be respect on both sides. I'm sure Eric and Justin will say the same thing. There has to be respect on the borrower side and the lender side, you know, where, you know, the borrower's respecting lenders, because most of them know, like, oh man, they just gave me money, and it can walk away out in the ether. So and a lot of times we have them put forth quite a bit of their own funds that they have. You know, everybody talks about the skin in the game, but you know, how much, you know. So but yeah, I love the commercial space. I love it.
But so let me ask you this, Brandon. I appreciate what you shared, and you know, it's certainly helpful, but I'm curious, like, how did you get to where you had consistent lead flow in that space, right? Because if you're pivoting from residential, that's your brand, that's how you market yourself. Like, how did you pivot to that?
So I target large commercial lenders, or like large commercial. I mean, Google is a big one. You find out who's doing the projects, where they're doing the projects. Look at announcements on like city, like, well, let's take for instance, like here in Virginia, just down the road, they're putting in a big data center, you know, and they announced the data center. So that would be a commercial project. So you can reach out to those people and see what type of funding they need. Obviously, you got to vet and everything, but we're more into like the buildings, you know, because that's a tangible asset. But honestly, it's kind of starts with Google, if I'm being honest. Like, yeah, I you know, and you're looking, if you want to target a specific state and then target like those bigger cities. Like here, I'm closest to Fredericksburg. It's a pretty big city, suburb of DC. Well, the suburb keeps coming down. And I'm looking for who's doing what projects. Even driving around, I'm going to write their name down, find out, and I tell them, like, I have funding for commercial projects. What do you have, and how can I help you? And I'm not afraid to call somebody up. Like, I'm calling them. And then what that does is, we've had this happen before, is where like, no, we don't need it. And then I'll get a call like a month later from someone they know. And they're like, hey, I heard that you might have, and that has actually led into quite a few of our commercial projects. Like, we just had one here come in from Connecticut that I talked to the guy like 8 months ago, and now we're probably going to be doing multiple projects with him. So,
so where's the funding source from this, Brandon? Is this private money, like private money?
Yeah, mostly family offices. Yeah, mostly family offices. I actually made a really good connection actually through my brother-in-law. His best friend owns a family office, so we were able to make that connection. And then we have another one in Wisconsin, and I've been targeting family offices, to be honest. It's very hard. I'm not gonna lie, it is very hard to get in that circle. But once you get in that circle in the family offices, you only need 1 or 2. And as long as you write, you know, everything out, so that they literally, it's endless capital. So
Yeah, just curious, like, what is the going rate for the ones that you've messed? Are they in the 10 to 12% annualized range, or do they want 20% annualized? Like, what's their kind of expectation?
So they're right around the 12, 13. We got a couple, I guess it depends. Sometimes they'll ask for a little bit more. Depends on the borrower's experience, depends how much they're putting into everything and what they've got done. And that's the only part. Like, so we'll present that to to our borrowers, but a majority of them are roughly around that range.
That's
So,
really cool.
but
So
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. And then I got another follow-up question.
So I don't even remember what I was going to say now. Totally lost it. Go ahead. It'll come back.
So what about so how do you position yourself to the family office? Are you like the lender and they're backing you as a lender? Are you a broker liaison that like puts these deals together?
So
like how do you
we present ourselves as, one, having the deal flow. Two, we've done these projects. We're very familiar with it. We have a full presentation that we put out. But you have to get in front of the people. Family office people are very private, so you kind of have to get in front of the people that know the people who have connections with the family office. Luckily, like in this one, like my brother-in-law, his best friend has a family office, and in fact, my brother-in-law didn't even know. He just knew he was rich. So he's got his own family office. So what that led into is an opening into other connections of family offices. So we basically put together a profile, a pitch deck, and a presentation. This is what we do. This is how we do it, and this is how you benefit. And and basically saying, give us one opportunity to show you what we can bring to the table. And if you don't like our opportunities, no hard feelings. So it pays to spend the extra time to get in front of those people.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. I appreciate you saying all that. And there's some people who are like, you're not going to get a family office unless you're paying them buku bucks because they've got opportunities left and right to invest in funds and make 20% annualized. So like, how are you going to convince them to give to like fund your deals at 12 to 13% annualized? But I'm sure there's some that would take 12 to 13% annualized.
Yeah, some do. Some are a little bit more. And we've done some where this family office, we did $1 million deal 2 weeks ago, and they came in, and that one was it was 10% for 1 month, and literally they were like, "Do you get these regularly?" I was like, I wouldn't say like regularly, but we asked the borrower what they're comfortable. It was like a last minute type of thing, and took it to them, and they liked it. Bang, funded it literally a couple days later, and they're tickled. Like 10% for 30 days. Like, yeah, we'll do those all day long. So, and that created an opportunity. We've never worked with them before, and that created an opportunity. Like, we'll take all of it if you can produce some of these. Is like, we don't even need 10%, but we like the deal.
Yeah.
So,
what state was that in?
That the actual deal is in Florida.
Okay.
The particular deal is in Florida.
I've done a few of those in Florida. So was it set up as like an LLC partnership to avoid usury concern?
Yeah. So they did the LLC, takeover LLC, and then it offered all the other protections available. It was going to be very short. In fact, I'm pretty sure the bridge is going to be here probably on Tuesday. The remaining, so it was in and out, and with the borrower's got a really good travel. In fact, we're looking at like 3 other deals with him, right in Daytona Beach. So it's and this is the power of word of mouth. It honestly really is. It really, the patience in the word of mouth. Like we all kind of start at the same time, and it really I actually had to. God has really presented the opportunities for us.
Mhm.
So, and it really has been a blessing. So, but yeah, I if you can get in front of that, just one, it's literally just one, and you just design your deals around them. It's pretty amazing. So they don't even blink. That's the funny part. They're just like, look down it. Yep, we're good. It's really kind of a, they've just been in it so long.
Yeah, well, they're decisive too. And if like if they've got 200 million in their
Mhm.
pot, and worst case scenario they lose $1 million, then that's like, well,
Yeah.
it sucks, but we're gonna make it back in another good deal. That was a bad one, but like if I lost $1 million, if you lost $1 million, and that just everything comes crashing down if we lose that much money. But if someone who has 200 million loses $1 million, it's like, yeah, whatever, because I'm gonna do some other good loans that are gonna make more.
Yep. Yeah. So, but yeah, and I don't know if you guys, I don't know if this might segue into, I don't know how long this is lasting. What have you guys seen on second position lending lately? Like, have you noticed like how many people no longer, even big time lenders are no longer doing, no matter what the LTV is, they're no longer doing second position.
Yeah, not a lot.
Yeah.
We're not doing any second position.
No, we're not doing it. I mean,
Yeah.
We've just discovered more and more stuff. Like we had an attorney talk at the private money lending mastermind that we spoke at as well, and they were talking about just the more and more you look into it, the more horror stories there are. And like,
Yeah.
when borrowers have problems, like in a bankruptcy, they can get wiped out. In other situations where there's just a lawsuit, like they've seen way too many second position liens just get stripped.
Yeah.
You're done. Like, the first position lien holds, but the second is just everything past the first position lien. Whenever there's legal hot water, it just too often gets brushed away. So there's, and then like probably one of the biggest things, there's one of the mentors I have that has, like not Pace or not anybody in our community. He's kind of a more private guy, but he's talked with me quite a few times. Name is Bob, just an amazing guy out of Charleston. He's like doing some loans that are in the hundreds of millions, but anyways, he's older guy, super experienced. He just told me, Eric, every single person I know that did second position lending has made a fortune doing it, and then they lost it all.
Yep.
So like historically, it's like, yeah, a lot. I mean, and I made a mini fortune doing second position lending, and I didn't lose it. And I'm kind of like cashing in my chips.
Hold it. Yeah. Hold it. Yeah, that's what we do too. Mostly first position. I just have this unique situation with this borrower in DC where like we're all in as is at like 54%, and but nobody's doing second position, so we aren't really presenting it. We're trying to figure out, 54% all in as is like pretty substantial. So that's the only reason why we were entertaining, this.
If the borrower is willing to pay the crazy rates for super high 10% a month or whatever second, why not just do a more reasonable rate, but take second and first, take it all down?
Oh yeah, take it all. Yeah, well, that's kind of what we're trying to see if we can negotiate that or like try and turn that around into where the first and second are owned in one. Because honestly, he doesn't even need, because it's 90 days. All of your money is just going to sit in escrow for 90 days because he's getting 0% for 90 days. So he might not even need it all. And then he's still paying you on the full use of those funds. So it's a pretty unique situation. And that's why we were entertaining it. And plus he's got so much experience. We're like, oh man, so
the irony is that second position lenders are usually people who don't have very much money. And so the reason they're doing it is because it's a lesser amount. So it's perceived to be something they can handle, when in actuality, it's much higher risk of actually losing it. And they're often lending to people who don't have enough money. That's why they needed a second position. And therefore the loan is actually not safe. It's not a safe loan to value. And then if it's actually a good, safe loan to value, then what's the point of not just taking over the whole loan?
Right.
And then when you're a big enough lender and you can afford to lose in second position, then why the heck would you do it? Like, do the whole dang loan.
Just do the whole thing. Yeah.
The only reason that you do it is for things like sub 2 and whatnot. And I feel like those are better structured as partnerships with great operators. Like that's the only way to me that it makes good sense to do those. And I'm not really convinced it makes great sense to do those. And I realize I'm in sub 2, but I wouldn't do them. I wouldn't get too excited about it. Maybe if I had a great partner, like Eric has said, like I had a stellar partner, but we see it over and over and over again.
Yeah,
it's
amazing that so many people Like, I mean, I myself included in that have gotten wrapped up in a second position deal that's still ongoing.
Mhm.
So, you know, but it just seems like some of the higher tier people that usually do second position on this kind of stuff are now like shying away. So that's why I was asking.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, like, we're due for a correction here.
Yeah. It kind of
Sure.
comes down to what do you want out of this whole investment journey? Do you want a hobby that you have to do with your W-2? Do you want another W-2 that takes all of your time? Like a W-2 business that takes all of your time and all of your energy to make it function? Or do you want to, be a business owner and scale this thing up and exit?
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to operate full-time in your business, you can do that. You can do that in this space. And you can
Yep.
continue to make choices in your business journey that just yield the result of you being stuck in your non-scalable business option. Or you can make decisions that consistently have yielded other people that scale out option where you can
Mhm.
hire, you can
Hire.
systematize, you can scale it up to the wazoo. And a lot of times the best scalable is copy paste boring.
Yeah.
Not, I'm going to customize this unique, interesting little deal. I'm going to tweak this a little bit here and there. And that's, obviously Pace has found a way to scale that, but he's got to have a huge team to make that consistently deliver and have him exit the daily work.
Well, listen, in 7 years and 11 months, if you guys all of a sudden don't hear from me, then we scaled.
You scaled.
We're done. I've got a timer. I'm counting down. I'm retiring in 7 years and 11 months. So,
Okay.
if not
Sounds
before.
good.
Yeah.
Well, this is good.
Awesome.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, no
Appreciate
problem.
you too, bro.
And we want to keep these office hours generally short and sweet. But thanks everybody for participating. Anybody else have any other questions? Anything else they want to say or ask before we sign off on here?
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, appreciate all the insight from Brandon there, and from you guys, and kind of peeling back the curtain, like hearing how you guys are looking at it. So thanks a ton.
For sure.
Yep, no problem.
Yeah. Well,
Awesome,
we
guys.
do these every week, every Friday. So feel free to invite other people. I feel like these kind of things work well with word of mouth, in particular. We send out little email reminders and things like that for folks if you're part of our email list. And but at the end of the day, if you have somebody that you think would find value in joining these and being a part of these conversations, then feel free to invite them. Every Friday, 11 a.m. Same link.
Yep. Okay, awesome. Well, I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate you.
Take care.
Thank you,
Take care, guys. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.